to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everybody to the 1 p.m. general session of the Southampton Town Board of Trustees. I will ask Secretary Treasurer Powell to do the roll call, please.
William Parrish. Present. Ann Walker.
Here.
William J. Warner Jr.
Who?
Edward J. Warner Jr.
I'm here.
That's
Just
his
wanted to see if you
cousin.
were awake. William Powell is present. Scott M. Horwitz.
I'm
present.
here.
Yes.
Okay, so for everybody's information, our next work session will be Wednesday, September 6th. It's on Wednesday instead of Monday, obviously because of the holiday. That's at 9:30 a.m. will be our work session. Town hall's closed on September 4th for Labor Day, observance of Labor Day. Our regular meeting will be at 1 p.m. on Wednesday, the 6th as well. We did have some communications. I will ask for a motion to dispense with reading of communications. You all have them. You can read them at your leisure. Seconded, Trustee Warner, all in favor?
Aye.
We do have some discussions. We'll get right into it. I know there was an urgency. We're going to take I'd like to get a motion to go out of order on the discussions. I'd like to do number 2. Seconded, Trustee Pell, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so we have a discussion with Solitude Lake Management. They were part of our Mill Pond electro-fishing presentation. I believe they're coming in on Zoom this morning. Welcome to the folks on Zoom. You have folks on Zoom, Charles?
Yes, sir.
Is Solitude there and ready to go?
Who are you looking for?
Solitude
Lake Management.
All I have is names.
Somebody raise your hand if you can hear me and you're from Solitude.
Aaron Cushing.
No hands.
No hands.
Hold on, because there's several.
Has anybody got their hand up? They're saying they're from,
No hands.
They were just outside talking, coming.
No, they're coming on Zoom.
Chris Horvath,
Yes,
David Beasley.
yes.
Any of those names, Charles?
No.
all right.
Okay, I told them to come on at 1:10 because of the,
All right, so
No.
let's maybe go back to the original plan.
103.
So
Okay.
Jess, you replied to this.
I
Trail
just said that they
Society.
can swap if you can.
You're gonna be relatively.
There's a Tom on now.
Oh, is it Tom on now? Is he from, ask me from Solitude?
No.
No. All right. We'll go back to the original plan?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Come on up, folks.
Is it SLM?
Oh, maybe that's
That's
them?
them.
That's them.
You got him there now? All
Yeah,
right.
it just came in.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry. Tim.
Sorry, you guys.
SLM, Solitude Lake Management.
Welcome, Solitude Lake Management. We're ready for your presentation.
It's coming in. Charles?
He's on, but he's not responding.
He might be mute.
He's coming in.
Okay.
Great.
All right.
Thanks, Charles.
So, just,
Just decline.
he what?
Yeah.
You declined admission?
Was it Solitude or just somebody with the same initials, just,
Chris? Guy named Chris?
Yeah.
he's coming on to make his presentation?
Chris, if you want to come on, don't decline. He's coming.
He's coming now. We're getting somewhere. Oh. Let's see. Well, we've been working for quite some time. I see some folks here from the Mill Pond area trying to get some help for the Mill Pond. We've been trying desperately, clean that up. And we just did a survey and a project here, and we're waiting for the contractors that did the work to come in and advise the board on the findings, recommendation. The public is here that lives there, and
Here we go.
everybody's been, we're driving. Do we want to pull over?
Hi, Chris. We're ready for you, Chris.
Where'd he go? I mean, this Zoom technology it's great, you know, there we go.
Don't blame it on the technology.
I know, I was saying it's great, but sometimes, you know.
Don't believe it.
Okay, sir. I think he's at the McDonald's drive-up or something here.
At least he's not driving anymore.
I know. Sir, how are you? Hi. He's not frozen. Would you like coffee? Anybody else? Hello, sir. Trustee Welker, you know this gentleman?
Can you
No.
turn your phone up?
No.
Somebody write a sign up and hold it because our cameras, so you can read it.
I feel like I'm in a Seinfeld episode. All right. Yeah, can you maybe give him a chat, Charles? Can you send them a message? Is that possible?
Maybe you can text me if you have his phone number.
I think Anna's got it here.
I don't know if Chris is, but- They have a time.
That's a good idea.
They have a time line that they need to be finished with. That's why we were trying to accommodate them. But,
But they're losing their minutes.
He's not responding to me.
Let's move on.
Let's move on.
We can work it out.
Yeah, you know what?
We
It's
got
fine.
other people waiting.
it's fine.
You try to reach, is there anybody else that you can reach there, Ann?
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying, but, I mean, we can go ahead and then,
I see he's messing with something here, but
We're really fast.
you're really fast?
All right.
You wouldn't believe how fast you
Yep, almost done.
Come on, come on,
All right.
come on
And
up
then-
and sit with us and let's talk about your thing. Let's multitask.
are. You get the sign sheet?
All right, so here we go. We've got the Trail Society. I know Mr.
Yeah, it's
Reisman
at
was
the-
gonna be here, but he's not.
Grab it.
No, he couldn't
Okay.
come.
Thanks, James.
Thank you,
James,
everybody. He's stamped in.
Step one.
thanks.
Highlight the process.
So stamp one, send something back, Justin Pell and myself. So I have Mr. Corbin here.
Yeah, I'm just gonna,
All right, so I guess I'm gonna run the show since Howard's not here.
I'm trying to read.
Eric
Yep. Yes, Eric.
and Dave.
Day, Dayton,
Yep.
Horse Day, you know, world renowned,
Secretary, Southampton Trails Preservation.
right?
you are?
Former president.
Yeah. Who's new president?
Mark Potter's president,
Yeah, he was invited today, too.
but who knows
Might
where
still
he
be
is.
away, isn't he?
Former president and founder.
And founder.
I didn't know he was founder.
No, Dave was founder.
Okay.
Let's rock and roll.
Go ahead.
All right.
I'm gonna give you the floor. Thank
Okay.
you for this presentation.
So I'm Tim Corwin, 7 Swan Hill Road, Southampton. And everybody has a copy of this in front of them. If we want to look at the cover sheet there, it says Cold Spring Pond Accessible Trail System. Now, this shows most of the parcel that you own on the Cold Spring Pond. It's a 55-acre parcel, and most of it is wetlands. You got that parcel roughly 20 years ago when they formed the golf course, and they gave you $500,000 at the time to do something with it, as I understand. I think at the last meeting, you said maybe 137,000 of the 500 original was spent.
That's what we think. But
Okay.
We're not quite sure where it is.
Okay, well, anyway, that's what I was told. Let's flip to the next
Actually,
page.
the town has the money, we don't have the money.
Okay, yeah, why don't you fill that in, I'll do mine afterwards.
Thanks, Dan.
Next page is a drone shot of the area of the property that we'd like to use. This was courtesy of Arthur Anderson. I don't know if you guys know him, but he does some really good work. And that is showing the trail that is there now with a little house on the end of it, and we would be coming in at that point, but if we flip to, actually skip the next page and go to the next one after that, I'm going to get back to this. So when we came up with this idea, it was actually Howard that came up with the idea. He approached me about it, and that was right after they finished, Nature Conservancy finished the Wolf Swamp Preserve along Millstone Brook Road. So if you flip to this page right here, okay, it's like 3 pages in. Okay, so Nature Conservancy did an absolutely beautiful, accessible trail in Wolf Swamp, and we figured, well, you know, maybe this would be perfect for Cold Spring. Let's look into it. So Howard actually looked into that to find out just what they spent on it, and if you look at the bottom line here, it was a little less than $500,000. Well, that's probably out of the budget we want to do. They did a total Cadillac or Rolls-Royce job. It's absolutely fantastic. We're looking to do something very similar, but more of the Chevy version.
Great idea, 'cause we would have the ribbon cutting.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did a great job.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, I agree.
If you flip back to this page, I spoke to the Peconic Land Trust, and this was a project they just finished in Southold, and actually I've been over there, familiarized myself with it, and they've actually asked me to lead bilingual hikes over there, and they will be providing an interpreter. So I'm going to be doing that there in the future. This is done by the same 2 companies that they recommend that we have the estimates from, which we're going to go through, which are in front of you here. We don't need to spend a lot of time on that, but that's just, the project they did over there, I think in many ways is just as nice as what Nature Conservancy did. So 2 of the companies, the first one we're going to use, it's Dirtworks, it's the environmental planning company recommended by Peconic Land Trust. And if you flip to this page, and I'm kind of going fast here, so you guys don't have to work.
They're the
Doing great.
engineers
Okay.
that do the planning.
Yeah, this shows the, yeah, they do the planning for it. And this shows the basic idea of what we want to do. If you look at that picture there, it's a half-mile loop where it says parking and access. We would be putting in a 7-lot parking lot, 7-car parking lot right there near the road in conjunction with the trail that's already there. That trail going from the parking area to where it says kayak access is about 500 feet long. And that would be part of the trail system. That would be compacted gravel. And then we would put a half-mile loop in, as you can see. One thing that's come to mind since then is I would also like to add another trail from here, just a single trail going out to here, with maybe a gazebo or a bench on the end of it. I think we can probably get somebody to donate that. The entire thing would be used, we would be using this material. This is a quartz material, which is locally available.
It's Long
You-
Island quartz.
Yes. And using that instead of
rocks.
bluestone. Yeah. Well, this would be compacted and tamped down. It would make a very hard surface. Supposedly, according to the contractor, it's just as good as the bluestone, a lot less expensive. That saves us a whole bunch of money.
It's cracked stone.
Yeah.
It's good.
And that's what they use in the project over in Southold, and as I said, I've been over and looked at that, and it is, I think it's just as nice as what the Nature Conservancy did. So anyway,
it's
this
native.
additional trail is not included in the estimate I'm gonna give you, but if we did add that on, it's optional, it would be about another $10,000. Okay? So flip to the next page after that. This goes into site analysis, schematic design. I'm not gonna read through this whole thing. I think you guys have probably seen some things similar to this before in your own time. Please scrutinize it. One thing I do want to point out here is it says, the 3rd paragraph down, it says, please note a detailed survey and wetland delineation will be required for our work as well as for permitting, blah, 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 blah. I think you guys already have that. Already asked you to take a look for it and see if you have it. Is it available, do you know?
James, were you able to find that?
I found a deed of dedication, I didn't find a survey.
A survey?
Did you find any money?
I don't look for money. That's not my,
Well, when you were doing the project with Sabonic,
It was a whole survey when they gave
yeah,
it to us.
yes.
Yeah, it seems to me if you acquired the property, you have to have a survey
No,
somewhere.
we were looking to do a project after we acquired the,
Yeah, I know you were.
and then it got tabled, but I remember there was a whole project, a whole thing, proposal like this, and a bunch of drawings and stuff like that, so it's gotta be in the office somewhere.
Well, if you guys can find that, it would be great. If not, then we're gonna have to hire a separate surveyor to go
We
out.
would
and,
have to look in the minutes and the date.
Yeah.
Would you like to?
I mean, I would suggest a new survey anyway, because it's your property, even if it goes back to '97, you want a new survey.
Let Joe come up.
Special counsel.
Special counsel Joe Lombardo.
His coordinates, his schedule, and coordinates, that's old.
Joe Lombardo, special counsel. I vaguely remember when I was in the town attorney's office, there was a proposal, I think, with Bill and Fred. They wanted to put like a cultural center or something
Yes.
there. We didn't have surveys, but I would imagine since it was all in front of the planning board and the deed of dedication is satisfaction of whatever site plan and whatever approvals they had, there might be like a master survey we could work from, but I would agree with James. It's been a lot of years, we're talking maybe 20 years that I remember working on it. A new survey would be well advised.
Why?
Okay, well, what they say here is that if we don't have the survey, they will hire a surveyor and just pass the cost along directly. They don't put any markup on that. So that would be part of, what you know, be an extra charge, whatever the survey cost is. So again, if you want to read through all this, I'm not going to read through it right now because you guys can do this on your own time.
Thank you.
It basically tells you what they're going to do for the planning process. And the end result is they're going to come out with a set of plans and permits, which we can then have a contractor bid on if that's what we want to do. Now, in fact, as we go past this to the next company, which is, I'm sorry, before we do that, if we flip to this page, this is their expenses.
See that?
Okay. Total is $23,500 plus task number 3 there, they're estimating $6,000, so basically about $30,000 for the planning aspects.
And they say they can get the DEC permit.
Yeah, and they say that too, yes, you're right.
Take a couple
Mhm.
of hours.
Okay, and they do give hourly rates if there is additional services required, but as for basic estimates, this is what we have right now, is about $30,000 for the planning. Okay? And again, it goes through a lot of details on what they're gonna do and so on and so forth. And if we keep flipping through to where it says page 1 all over again, you'll see MGD Horticultural Services in Matatuck.
Yep.
Okay? You know, they're the contractor that did the project, Peconic Land Trust. And these two companies have worked together on a number of other projects too, which I haven't had the time to look at, but as I said, I have looked at the one in Southampton, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Okay? So this gentleman's name is Matt Daly. He's a local guy, born and raised in Southampton. And this is talking about the actual building of the trail itself. And the basic trail is $20 per foot. This would be the half-mile loop that was shown in that picture to begin with. And that comes out at about $52,800, okay? If we added that additional 500-foot trail that I'd like to see, that's also going to be $20 a foot. That would add about $10,000 to the cost. That's something we can talk about that, okay? Flip to the next page here.
Make the Colwyn Trail.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Mhm.
Riceman, Carlin.
The
Yeah,
Riceman
okay,
Colwyn
yeah.
Trail.
All right, we can do that. Mhm. Okay.
5 grand each.
All right, flip to the next page here, page number 2, and it gives the $500 per linear foot. This is for the 500-foot trail going in, which is already there. I think it would probably come out a little bit less than what they're estimating, because that trail is already cleared. It's going to require a lot less work than the rest of the trail work. But that's the estimate
It's
we have.
never less, Tim.
What's that?
It's never less.
Well, yeah, you're probably right
Would
about that.
that one be accessible also, or?
Yes, yeah. Everything we're talking
You-
about,
You get that
it's going to be,
stone.
we're going to use the stone, and it's going to be compacted down. It'll make a very nice surface.
And it's water, the water goes right through.
Yeah. Mhm. And then anybody, you know, it's not just for handicapped people. You know, people in the area, anybody that wants to go for a nice little hike without having to worry about ticks. It's a nice wide trail. I mean, you'd have to really try to get a tick there. Maybe if you walked off the trail or something.
Right.
And there's a lot of people right in the Cold Spring area that I think would like to use it, and as well as, you know, everybody else in the town. You know, it's a great facility. It will be.
It's very
The
pretty.
kayakers,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's another thing too. Now, I've actually talked to Josh Belluri, and he'd like to set up something there for his Sea Scouts and have some rowboats and kayaks down there, I think we could probably accommodate that. That's not something we really need to consider right at this time, but it can definitely be done.
Right.
All right, turning to page 3 here, labor and material, 2,800 square feet, says $14,000. That's for the parking area, which is also going to be all packed material there. And if you look below that, there's 2 stars. It says, please add $4,000 for the asphalt paved handicap parking stall with striping and signage. That's what the Nature Conservancy did on their parking area. They have a separate paved area for handicapped people. If we want to do that, it's an extra $4,000.
You have
Frankly,
to.
I don't think we need it.
Well, isn't that the point, to have a handicap?
Well, again, if we want to do it, we definitely can. That's part of the plan. Okay? So if we did that, it would be it'd be an extra $4,000, and if we wanted to put split rail fencing in, they're estimating another $2,500 there. Again, those are options. We don't have to. We can do them or not do them, depending on what we want to do. And then the very end page here is summary of estimated costs. And based on what we just went through, the total cost for this would be $106,300. Another $10,000 if we want to add that additional trail in, which I'd like to see. So we're looking.
It sounds like you could get a lot of public access and recreation out of this
I think so.
for
A
that.
lot of osprey nests, 'cause there's a couple of osprey nests to the north of that.
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
where the gazebo could.
Yeah, that would be perfect, yeah. I think it would be a really pretty trail. If we put that additional trail in there, it would actually be possible for somebody to do 2/3 of, almost a full mile hike if they hit all the trails all together.
Put some benches along the way.
Yeah.
So people can rest.
Yeah, and those again could be donated. I think we can get people in the community to donate maybe some instructional signs and benches and maybe a
that would be
gazebo.
That
really
would,
helpful.
that's the
Yeah.
thing, instructional signs,
Yeah.
benches,
Mhm.
you can really make it an educational hike.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like I said, we were there for the,
Yeah, good.
Wolf Swamp,
I have
and
a-
and
I have a-
we did a
Yeah,
great job.
Wolf Swamp is beautiful, and,
Yeah.
if we could afford to spend $500,000, it'd be nice to do exactly the same thing, but,
I have a question. Hey, Mark, do they have to pay prevailing wage on this? Is this prevailing wage?
If we put it out
If
for
it's a
bid.
public works project, prevailing wage is supposed to be the
So
wage.
is this, are these prices with prevailing wage?
I don't believe they are.
But I'll look into that.
That's,
Okay.
But
That's
do you
the-
have to put it out to bid?
We have to
we,
put
we,
it,
we, yeah,
using
we'd have
public money,
to,
yeah.
we'd have to follow procurement procedures.
So he'd have to,
I was gonna say, cause that, yeah, I mean,
because Peconic Land Trust or, they don't have to pay
Yeah.
prevailing wage.
you know what we need to do, this is a great conversation, and I was, you and I are going
Yeah.
back and forth over the weekend, and I think what we need to do is build on the conversation.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And really drill down on how we accomplish something like this.
Okay.
Because, you know what, there are other areas,
Peconic, this is gonna be run though by the Peconic Land Trust and it.
Oh, no.
we don't know,
We're just using them for comparison. We're looking
Right.
at, this is the companies, these are the 2 companies that they're preserve over in Southold as well as several
Right.
other preserves.
Because there is an exemption from prevailing wage for a not-for-profit.
We could
Right.
probably have them do it.
I get it, which is why I think that
Yeah, well,
this is
there's
the
always
beginning
a
of
way.
this, let's
we're
continue
not
on,
profit.
let's continue on this
Yeah, that's why I'm-
conversation and
that's
as
why I'm
more,
asking.
The Wolf's Swamp
Southampton
project
Trails
would be
isn't
the template to do this.
Southampton Trails.
So whatever they did there, we mimic that.
well, no, but he's saying that there is some cost-saving measures that you can take from that project with native material, which would do the same. So you're gonna wanna take the same type of concept, but maybe get it to more, budget-friendly and
Yeah.
still accomplish the same
Mhm.
goals. And that's why, like, let's try to get ahead of some things on the weekend.
Right.
But I think what we should do is try and, take this information, it's a great presentation, and then let's expand on it.
Good,
We
okay.
also have to do some more research on where
If there's money, we would.
where the funds are,
Yeah.
because that's a key part of it. So let's continue this conversation. I
Okay.
appreciate that there's certainly, a lot of enthusiasm about this sort of stuff, but I think it's about the actual logistics of how you
Yeah.
best accomplish this.
Okay,
So you're gonna check on that,
Yeah, with Mark.
and then check on the finances, and then you and I will have a conversation,
okay,
and then we'll just keep going like that.
sounds
Is that
good.
fair?
Yeah, definitely. Mhm.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Very exciting project.
Oh, let me-
It's a
let me
fun
just sign
project.
here.
I started it, but I wasn't, couldn't remember the
Thank you.
others.
Thank you,
So,
thank
So did you look into, I know we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. Did you find anything about the money at all?
Yeah. We should talk about it.
Thank you.
What is it you want to know?
Golf course. So I should wait to hear from you, Scott?
Yeah.
What the issue is,
Yeah, you-
prevailing
Yeah,
wage.
let's
what-
talk, later today or tomorrow. Give me a call, shoot me a message, and then let's have a conversation.
And if you look in there, my card is in
I saw it.
It's got all my contact
I saw it.
information.
Exactly, I saw it. I was trying to get ahead of it.
You know what, Hank?
Yeah, I know.
I can't hear
I
words,
got
I'm
your
sorry.
message too late.
It's okay, we'll talk about it next couple of days. Perfect. Thank you.
Sounds great, thanks.
I'll talk to you later about it.
Okay.
All right, so now let's see if we can go back to the Solitude Lake Management. Chris Horvath, are you ready for your presentation slot here?
Aaron,
Charles?
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Aaron Cushing, David Beardsley.
And Brandon
Can
McCarthy.
you put your video on?
Can everyone hear me here?
Yes.
Yep.
Charles, is there a way the public can view this sitting on
On the
the other screens?
I thought that was on, so.
It's not showing that.
Is that possible?
Only the screens on your left.
Only those screens. You want to come sit up here and watch? You're welcome to come sit here and watch the presentation.
Steve, are both of those screens on up there, or just one of them?
Just one.
Just one. Just the one towards you guys. The only one we can see is.
You want to sit here? Why don't you sit here and watch? Why don't you sit here? You took the time to come down here,
Thank you.
Sit down, and this way you can watch.
You guys sit there, please.
Can you see from there?
Can you put the back one on, Charles, please? It's possible.
Can you see it?
Having that cake.
I don't wanna put this one off, because that one.
No, you know what? If you, listen, you're welcome to come here. You're okay?
Let me just turn them on.
All right.
You're okay?
I'm very happy.
All right. What happened? Let's,
Oh, he's gonna let him in. He's trying to get the back one on, but he says puts the back one on, the front one will go off. So,
welcome. Nice to see you. What's some airtime here? I feel like Johnny Carson bombing a monologue here or something. I mean, what is it?
come on, Scott, we need some pop.
Huh?
Popcorn.
Some pizza maybe? Did you bring anything?
I should have had, I thought this was gonna be not this long.
Welcome to the Board of Trustees.
No pawn No pawn, please. They both go together. Gotta rename the pawn, Steve's pawn.
I'm just waiting for them to put their video on.
Are there three names there, Charles? Aaron Cushing, David Beasley, and Chris Horvath? Those should be the three.
Yes.
And Aaron has a hard line of 2 PM that he has to step off.
Okay, so we got some time.
You guys can start whenever you're ready.
Okay, well, can you guys hear me okay? This is David Beasley with Solitude Lake Management.
We can. Can you turn your,
Okay,
okay, we can see you
perfect. I'm gonna
too.
start my video, and I apologize, just a little delay here. Let me, share my screen.
You guys can all see.
Okay, so can you guys give me a thumbs up or let me know if you can see my screen okay? Okay, perfect.
Can you make it a little bigger?
I'll start, Aaron Cushing, Chris, and then myself are all on this call, as well as Brendan. We should be up to 4 of us from Solitude. We want to take a minute to share with you the electrofishing results and some of our insight regarding the lake and the health of the lake in particular, related to electrofishing and some past practices you guys have had, but would enjoy the opportunity for some open discussion on this as far as you guys would like to take it. But in general, this is, my screen is just showing the electrofishing report. It's a 15-page document that goes through the findings from this past June. And I was just gonna summarize a few things, skipping down to some of the results. But basically, the lake has too many common carp in it to be, I guess, naturally healthy. There's a level at which once you have too many common carp, it causes some dysfunction within the ecosystem. And so basically, based on our findings as well as past findings and piecing everything together, you have three primary issues with the lake currently that would be great to discuss. And I'm not sure if this is the best format for that, but we'll try to have a discussion here. And I'm going to share a screen here, switch over to this summary table here. Let me zoom in for you. Basically, I'll jump back to the electrofishing report in a second, but I wanted to highlight these three problems, 1, 2, and 3. So common carp are driving blue-green algae blooms. So when you look at the lake this past summer, or probably currently, but in June, the water clarity was about 12 inches, and there was a lot of blue-green algae in the water, and other organisms like phytoplankton as well. And this blue-green algae, poor visibility, is a symptom generally of common carp. And so two symptoms related to common carp are the phosphorus and the algae. And then an additional problem, because again, these are the problems here, this will make sense in a second. Another problem, low oxygen in deeper water in the summer. A symptom that is a result of this low oxygen is elevated phosphorus. And then the last problem, which I know this kind of seems like a circle, but elevated phosphorus is actually also a problem, and that's kind of feeding this blue-green algae and low oxygen. And so when we zoom out, there's two approaches to take with the lake, and one is to fix the problems, and another one is to address the symptoms. And I think it all will make sense here in a second, but in general, removing carp from the lake and getting their population down to where it's more of a healthy state fixes a lot of the water clarity and blue-green algae and elevated phosphorus and low oxygen issues. So just reducing the carp numbers successfully would result in that. That said, I think some attention should be put towards your phosphorus levels as well to reduce them. And so that said, I was going to jump back into the electrofishing report, but before I do that, do we want to pause for some comment or questions or feedback related to what I've said so far?
I mean, I comment right out of the gate, just looking at your list there relative to treating symptoms. I see you're listing Phoslock on the treatment of symptoms, which I think we've already tried that.
Yes.
Here. And I don't know if you were aware of that.
Correct. So if I heard you correctly, the volume is really, I don't know why, but I can't hear you guys very well. I've tried every speaker I've got. It's like the audio is just quiet on your end. So what you're saying is that you put in some Phoslock in the past to mitigate some of the phosphorus. Is that what you said?
Initially, we did one application with the Phoslock, and we were supposed to do a second one, which we never got accomplished because we had two very large rain events, one 6 inches and I believe one 4 inches, and the nutrient load in the pond did not calculate for that runoff. So the Phoslock initially started to work, the rain happened, and basically the whole project got deep sixed.
Yeah. Well, let me expand on that slightly, and then let's circle back to let's just keep this dialogue going. The order of operations, the reason I put the carp up top, and, I just want to state, like, we're neutral, 100% neutral. There's a bunch of ways you can go about improving the lake, and there's also things you can just say, hey, sounds good, but, you know, what's the problem if we just do nothing, right? And there's definitely a case to be made for what direction to go, but I would state, in general, if we put a timeline together on order of operations, you likely are making a mistake to mitigate phosphorus or reduce phosphorus levels if common carp are stirring up sediments in the bottom of the lake. Oftentimes, when you calculate how much phosphate to put into a lake or how much phosphorus needs to be removed or mitigated, there's a great deal of phosphorus in the sediment. Like a tremendous amount of the phosphorus comes from the sediment. And that sediment could be a foot thick, 2 feet thick, 6 inches, right? And so how deep the sediment is plays a large role in your application rate, but typically, phoslock applications target the top few centimeters, say the top 1 inch of sediment in the lake. And so if you put in enough phoslock to address that top inch of sediment, and then fish come by and stir it all up, it's not that what you've done doesn't have an impact, as well as flushing rates and inputs from rain events, but I would say before you add more phoslock to the lake, I think you just want to make sure that whether you're going to live with the carp the way they are or you're going to resolve them, that decision is made first and then move forward. But I was not aware of the phoslock side of things, but the thing with phoslock is it's a lanthanum-based clay molecule, and it has an affinity, a strong bond with phosphorus. And so once you put phoslock in and it attaches to the phosphorus, it's attached permanently in the environment. Like it takes a very, very low pH, like abnormally low in the ecosystem to break that bond. And so it is likely that you just need more to solve the problem, but I don't think it's that simple necessarily. But I'll pause there. So any thoughts or comments?
Yeah, one comment. We were supposed to do the second application, but because the initial application did not work, the town board that was paying for the project decided the contract was null and void, and they never did the second application. We have one of the residents from the pond here, Mr. Abramson, who's very well versed in this whole process. He would like to make a comment.
Thanks. Hi. Good to see everybody. One other detail that's important, that as part of the initial contract for removal or binding the phosphorus with Phoslock, was that the town anticipated that we'd have to take care of the drainage on Deerfield Road. And we had, during those two major events, rain events that you talked about, 4 inches and 6 inches, we had a ribbon going all the way across the pond that you could actually see, visibly see. And that nutrient-laden water overwhelmed that treatment. The part of that contract was originally that the drainage had to be addressed at the same time. That was the people who put together that contract insisted upon that as part of their protection as to what they were doing. That was never done at that time. It eventually was done. Alex Greger came up with a great plan, and it actually sequesters most of that water now. So we don't have the same problem and conditions that we had initially when Phoslock failed, because it was overwhelmed from the lack of drainage.
That's correct.
Thank you.
So
Yeah, I would just go back, and I'm not sure who, I don't believe Solitude was involved in those applications or processes, and I could stand corrected there, but in general, phosphorus mitigation is an all or nothing approach from a standpoint of there's different trophic states or different amounts of phosphorus that lead to growth, excessive growth. And so a crystal clear lake, you go to a nice lake and the water's gin clear, looks beautiful. Generally phosphorus levels are going to be less than 12 or less than 15 parts per billion. So, like 12 to 15 parts per billion or less. And then as you get into lakes that are more productive, you elevate into, say, between 25 and 96 parts per billion. And if you've got a lake and it's just like pea soup, lots of green algae growth, nice plankton bloom, like we're dealing with here, that coincides with phosphorus levels that are greater than 30 or 40 parts per billion, and generally closer to 100. And the water quality data that we're looking at is a little dated, but it's still accurate. It's from 2020. I believe Princeton Hydro put it together for you guys. But your phosphorus levels average in the 70s and 80s. And if you take your phoslock and you add that to the lake and you take your phosphorus from 80 down to 60 or 80 down to 50, you likely had a good positive impact, but it doesn't change your outcome. You're still going to have pea soup, green water. You have to bring your phosphorus from 80 all the way down to, say, 20. And once you get it down all the way to 20, then the cycle works and you're in a good spot. But to go and do half of something doesn't mean you get half the result. Doing half of it means you're just halfway to the result you want. Although again, that's not necessarily, I don't have all the information. I don't know how much phoslock you applied. I don't know all the details, but fundamentally, from the science standpoint, we can definitely talk about that here further. But I don't know if I addressed the comment or the question properly. Is there anything else on that one?
I don't believe so.
I don't think so.
Okay. It will be important to get your phosphorus levels down, and I can share the report I was looking at to pull that water quality from. I would suggest measuring twice, cut once approach on this. If the latest water quality data you have is from 2020, I would say grab some more. Or if you guys want to share with Solitude the data you have, we're happy to look at it and provide some insight from our opinion. But I would agree that you want to deal with the problem, and if the carp are part of this problem, we need to decide, one, are we going to live with the carp forever, or two, are you going to eradicate the carp to a population, well, not eradicate, but reduce the carp population to where they're no longer negatively impacting the lake. And it's kind of a fork in the road. And to make that decision, what does it take to eradicate the carp? We could take a few minutes now and discuss that if you'd like.
That'd be a good idea.
So I have a question. You're making the statement that the pond contains too many common carp to be healthy. And if you go back to your results page, if you look at the first bullet, and that's the results of the electrofishing.
Right here?
Yep. So the first bullet, Mill Pond fish community is diverse. You guys can see this, right?
Yep.
Okay. So you'll note that there are approximately 6 or 7 species that were collected, and the numbers of fish range from 1 to 50 or so. But there was one common carp pulled as a result of the
Correct.
as a result of the electrofishing survey. And then if you go down to the third bullet,
Yep.
you state that you collected and removed over the course of your time here approximately 675 pounds of common carp. So we've done a couple removals of carp. Yours, spring of 2023, when if you looked back at prior reports, you would note that in the fall of 2022, we also did a carp removal, and that number, I don't have it at hand right now, but I believe it was in the range of 300 pounds of fish. When the removals were done in 2020 and 2021, we were getting numbers that were in the thousands, 3 or 4 or 5 or 6,000 pounds of fish. So I'm just struggling with the connection between too many common carp and the results that have been obtained both in spring of 2023 and in the fall of 2022 with carp removal.
Yeah, I think that's good commentary here. Appreciate the input. So there's that's part of the challenge as a fisheries biologist, but I feel confident in our findings, and so I'll share with you how we got there. So the one common carp, that's simply during the electrofishing runs where we weigh and measure all the fish. One fish was collected then, but then an additional 10 hours of pedal time yielded the other 675 pounds of fish, which was equivalent to, I believe, around 350 fish or 320 fish. I'd have to look. They had like a 2.7 average weight was 2.7 pounds. So we were catching about 25 fish an hour of effort. And visibility in 0.4 was 12 inches. So it's very difficult to collect fish and net them when you can't see more than 12 inches into the water. And so if there was a 3-foot visibility, although speculating here, and I know we're dealing with assumptions when we deal with Mother Nature, but based on all of our experience, if this was a 36-inch visibility, this number would have been significantly higher because we're able to net the fish we see versus you see a flash, and then by the time you go to net it, you can't see it anymore, so you're stabbing in the dark blindly trying to net a fish. And so there were things that were impacted, which we state here, water clarity impacted catch rates, as well as dense lily pad growth. About 30% of the surface acreage of the lake was relatively difficult to access due to the lily pads. And so between water clarity and lily pads, the sample size or the catch per unit effort was skewed to the downside. And and a couple other things here, but I do want to discuss this at length because we are data-driven, results-oriented, approach to fisheries. That's the approach we take. And we're not looking to recommend something just to check the box and say, hey, we went and we did this and now we're good. Let's move on to the next box we can check. Like, at the end of the day, there's plenty of lakes with problems and there's real solutions. One area is we are lacking data on how many carp are in the lake. And that is something that we've circled back to every day. We talk about this internally, that we've talked about this in the last few months. We don't have a good understanding of the number of carp. The right way to figure out the right number of carp is you go and you do a mark recapture study. And you mark a bunch of fish and then you come back at a later date, you sample the fishery again, and depending on the percent, say you catch 1,000 fish, you mark them all, you come back a week later, or say 2 weeks later, you catch another 1,000 fish, and 1 out of 10 has that mark, then you got 10,000 fish in the lake, roughly. And there's studies you can do to kind of hone in on that, but based on everything we've seen so far, your common carp are driving some of your water quality issues, and it's hard to gauge how many are in there. I'm not implying that the lake is a train wreck or a mess to where it's like you need to throw your hands up in the air. I would just say with quite high confidence, very high confidence, that you guys do have more common carp in the lake than you would want if you want a lake that is maintaining healthy algae species and moderate to reasonable phosphorus levels, as well as good oxygen throughout the summer. Although the water quality data did show good oxygen through most of the year, there is data that shows that in the middle of summer, oxygen in the deeper water starts going away, which is leads to more phosphorus. It's like this cycle where you run out of oxygen, you end up with more phosphorus, and with more phosphorus, you end up having less oxygen. It's just like this. It's just a repetitive loop that needs to be broken. And one fork in the road is deal with the carp by addressing their population. The other is move on without addressing them. And the reason why you move on without addressing them is budgetary. You're going to spend, you're going to probably spend $500,000 solving your carp problem, period. And then you spend another couple $100,000 to fix the water quality in a lake and get it to where it's really healthy long term. That said, you can skip the carp and just address the water quality and the balanced ecosystem and live with what you have from a carp level, most likely. And I'm happy to explain every step of the way and share our insights and run through this report more as well and help start the dialogue needed to have the right conversations. But right now, I'm not sure where your guys' heads are at, what they're thinking of, where do we start, what questions do you have? I didn't come here to have just an open-ended dialogue and you guys be more confused than you started, and that's obviously a risk here. So what do you guys want to talk about? Do we want to go through the electrofishing report further? Do we want to talk about the carp we caught versus how many are likely there? Like, where do you guys want to go?
Can I ask one? What would be the optimum time to do electrofishing in this body of water?
Was your question, what would be the optimal number of carp when
What would be
electrofishing?
the optimum time to do electrofishing in this body of water to maximize the catch of carp?
So, springtime, when they're congregating to spawn, is ideal. And so that's early spring. The problem is electrofishing is not the best solution for carp harvesting. It's on a lake that's 100 acres, it's hard to suppress their population through by harvesting electrofishing. So the solving the carp problem comes from they don't do well if there's a lot of small fish in the lake. And so improving the number of bluegill and pumpkin seed sunfish would be step one. Well, not necessarily in order, but that is important. And then coupling that with the best harvesting strategy you can implement. And trap netting would be more efficient on a lake this size than electrofishing. We have had great luck near you on a 14-acre lake. Lake Lucille harvesting through electrofishing has worked very well, but that's only 14 acres. Once you jump up to a larger lake of this nature, luring them in with bait and trapping them is the best approach when it comes to dollars spent. But they all pose their challenges. And I know you guys have tried some of the trapping before, but there are certain ways to do it more effectively, and we've examined and thoroughly talked through with the folks that actually did the trapping at your place in years past, and there are ways to greatly improve the probability of success over what was done. There was just some corners cut for one reason or the other, and nothing negative there. Just things cost money, and so starting with a good understanding of how many carp you have is the best first step in solving your carp problem. Trying to solve a problem and you don't know the extent of it was the path that they took, and I don't think that's the right path. You really need to know what are you starting with, so then you can properly accomplish your goal. But again, not all that said positively, there's no negative there.
Perhaps if
So,
you, Perhaps if you wanted to do, just in interests of time, a quick, or not quick, but just a recap of what you presented in your report so that everyone would be aware of that, both in the audience here and watching later, that would be helpful.
Okay, perfect. So this is the results section. We touched on a few of these bullet points. Basically, bluegill numbers are lower than we want, but you have to take that, you have to look at that through the same lens of the carp numbers are showing less than they really are. So all fish species collected, all their populations are larger in number than what this data shows due to the two variables that impacted our catch rates. So bluegill numbers are low. The first one here though is largemouth bass. Their numbers are low. They're low by, we caught 15 fish per hour of effort. It's about 33% of what we want. Between 25 and 33% of what we want. But I'm sure your population's higher than that. So nothing really to note on your largemouth bass and bluegill. Overall, they look pretty good in general when it comes to size distribution based on the water clarity what we're dealing with. They are slightly underweight. You know, these fish should be at a relative weight of 100. So these fish are basically not getting enough to eat. So the largemouth bass have less to eat than the average fish in the state. So the average fish in the state would be right here. I'll scroll down a little bit. They'd be right here, this line 100. So not uncommon to see, but it is another indicator that the system's slightly broken. But I say that like that doesn't mean the world's ending. It just means the fishery has some room for improvement. Bluegill, same thing. We want our catch unit effort around 300. You know, we're 1/8 of what we want roughly, or whatever that is, right? So the bass and the bluegill numbers are under their desired range, but the bluegill percentage-wise are less. So we know the bluegill need to be improved, and bluegill are also the #1 predators in this system for common carp eggs. So improving bluegill numbers will help suppress future recruitment of your common carp. So the common carp population will have a harder time in the future if your bluegill numbers go up. The one challenge with increasing bluegill numbers, as I scroll down here, I'll go back up, sorry. There's no graph for it. But the average weight of your bluegill is healthy. You're right at the state average, around 100. The challenge would be we have half the bluegill we need likely, and the ones you have are barely getting enough to eat, like they're just average. So if you doubled or tripled your bluegill population, it's quite likely they would be then underweight. One could argue though, underweight bluegill means they're more hungry, means they'll take more risk, which means common carp eggs are significantly more at risk. And, you know, it starts pointing towards increasing bluegill numbers will likely have a strong impact on common carp recruitment. Moving down, I just wanted to show you one other thing here in particular. Sorry for the scrolling, making anyone dizzy. This report though is available. We can make it available if you guys don't, for anyone who wants to see it. But this budget step, we've built this out a lot since we sent you guys this report. We've spent, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 hours or more working behind the scenes to start better understanding long-term solutions. And so we have built this out further. And again, maybe this isn't the best platform to open the conversation on budget and, you know, do you do this or that or timing on it. But we have internally begun building out, and I feel like we're at a very good spot now to share it with you. What way do you go to solve the problems, what problems really even need to be solved, what can just be dealt with or lived with. And so, at the end of the day, though, the main levers you have to pull on to make a difference will be reducing phosphorus and reducing carp, as well as adding oxygen. We don't have adding oxygen on here. That is on the newest version that we created. Adding oxygen helps significantly. We now have more water quality data than we did when we put this together, and so, and we did recommend some additional water quality testing, but at the end of the day, we can talk more about fisheries management improvements now or later, as you guys desire. But the summary of the recommendations are here. Again, we have pivoted slightly, made some small modifications on some of them, and just based on further information. But you will find you'll want a 3 to 5 year approach to deal with this, if there's anything you guys feel you want to deal with. I wouldn't say there's anything that you can just do and just spend 10 grand and walk away and then it's done forever. I don't think there's that many options here. That said, I don't think this needs to be complicated. I think it mostly just needs alignment and some guidance. So I'll pause there.
Any questions from the group that's here, Mill Pond? You gotta use the mic, because I know you've got a lot of time in here, and while we have this ability, I think we should get it on the table.
Not a question. I'd just like to make an important point. We've been after this problem for a long time about the pollution in the pond. And it's very important that we resolve this. This isn't just for aesthetics alone. Blue-green algae, cyanobacteria, is very toxic. It can give you symptoms of Parkinson's. It won't give you Parkinson's, but people will think you have it. And people should be able to swim in this lake as they used to at one point in time. We used to have bass fishing contests in this pond. The bass have been predated by the carp. Princeton Hydro concluded after extensive study that the major, most important thing we could do is continue to remove carp. That was a conclusion that was pretty clear. Steve Souza had that conclusion beforehand. He was the founder who left Princeton Hydro, and then Princeton Hydro later, in a detailed report, came up with that idea. When the trustees applied for additional funds from the Water Quality Improvement Fund, it was a 5-year plan, which includes significant funds there that exist there now for continuation of carp removal. And I urge you to continue to do this. The conclusion now, reinforced now by Solitude, that there are carp there. I think one of the reasons, and Chris, you alluded to this, but I'm not sure you meant to say it. A large, extensive part of this pond is covered in lily pads now, which prevented you, I think, from going into that area to do electrofishing. Am I right about that?
Yeah, that's correct. The electric fishing was impacted by lily pads. I'll answer for Chris.
Okay, so an important piece here too is on the docket in terms of agenda is for us to get the lily pads out. We were supposed to get them out. A contract, I believe, was awarded, and the time frame was to have been done by September 1, which it won't be done by, but we'd like to get them before they die back and return their nutrients that they capture within the shoots into the water column, because those nutrients of phosphorus and nitrogen will again feed next year's algal blooms. So it's in our best interest to do this. It's in our best interest to not just remove the lily pads, but to go get the carp while we can. They're very fecund. We don't want to have another year class of carp in the pond too. We want to get them out as fast as we can and as much as we can. Chris Pickerel of Cornell Cooperative Extension confirmed also that the most important thing we could do is get the carp out, get them all out if we can, were his words. And I just wanted to emphasize that because I want to be sure that we're going in that direction. I'd also like to have confirmation that we are indeed going to remove the lily pads, if not by September 1, which is in a week, and not even, when that's going to happen. Because it was supposed to have happened in March. We were assured that it would be happening within this time frame. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Not subject to the.
I can address that.
Thank you.
So, there are kind of two different points we need to address here. So when the Water Quality Fund was applied to, it was applied to, they limited the amount of carp removal funds that could be, that would be, that we could use. So each time we use those funds, like the amount that they allotted us for carp removal, we've used. So we've had to go into the floating wetlands budget portion, and that takes time, as you know. So that's one. There is money there, but it digs into and subtracts from other issues that we were going to go after. That's one aspect of things. And it takes a considerable amount of time. And I don't want to speak for the Water Quality Committee, but our experience with them has been that they are not in support of carp removal, so it's a very lengthy and difficult process to reallocate that money. We have been successful in doing it thus far, but it is very lengthy. And let me also address the water lily aspect of things. So we have the funding. We have also, because water lily harvesting was not part of the initial application, we have had to go to the Water Quality Committee, ask for them to reallocate some of the money for water lily removal. We were successful in that. We were successful in going out to bid for a contractor in order to remove the water lilies. We're ready to go on that. Where we're held up is that we have applied to the DEC for the permit necessary to remove the water lilies. We did that back in the spring. We specifically said when we applied for that water lily application, we wanted to remove during peak biomass. Peak biomass being between July 1st and September 1st. We have yet to receive that permit. We have basically nonstop been advocating for the release of that permit. We have not been successful up to today. If anybody else would like to weigh in, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, I think there was some kind of misinformation with the water lily application when we were asking to have the permit. They were on the understanding that we're going to harvest the whole entire plant out of there. We're just going to harvest the shoots and leave the rhizome. So I think that was another holdup that they didn't understand, and they questioned why we were doing it that way, and then we had to reconfirm that we were doing it the proper way. So I mean, like, through this process, we've been hands-on, moving money from one account to another, and advocating to have this project done. We were hoping to have it done earlier, but unfortunately, without getting a permit in hand, we can't do that. But I know Anna's made a few phone calls to the people at the DEC, and Scott probably too, and to advocate for this. Anybody that has dealt with the DEC in the last 2 years with COVID or anything, applications have been taking a long time, and historically they took a long time, but instead of months, now they're taking almost a year or longer. So it's nothing that our board has been stalling on. I think we've been proactive. We've been listening to you and everybody in the community and resolving one issue after another. But, sometimes things are just a little beyond our control. And like I said, as soon as we get this permit, if they're still there to harvest, we plan on doing it. There's a contract that's been agreed to, and so we're ready to go. We just need that permit.
Well, I think you have a.
Yeah, can I comment as well on lilies?
Sure.
The percent coverage, when we saw it in June, was about 30% covered. You're gonna want 15 vegetation in the lake in general, to maintain a healthy, balanced ecosystem. And so removing half of the lilies would make a lot of sense opposed to all of them. And, by leaving vegetation in the lake on some level, you end up steering the nutrients you do have, the phosphorus in particular, into the direction you want, versus when we eradicate all the plants, you end up with, you have sunlight, you have warm temperatures, and you have nutrients. If you have all three things, something's gonna grow. And you guys have the sunlight, you have the warm temperatures in the summer, you have the nutrients, and so you definitely strategically will want to keep aquatic plants at, about 15 acres of aquatic vegetation, just so that you reduce the likelihood of blue-green algae being problematic over time. And so that's something to consider, and I think the DEC probably is aware of that now that you're not trying to eradicate all of them, but that might have been part of the hang-up from the DEC. And then secondly, you're going to want to kill these plants versus give them a haircut. So your money is best spent actually putting an herbicide on the plant that translocates down from the leaves of the surface to the roots, kills everything, like totally, versus going in and either grabbing with a mechanical harvester the top or the stems or all of it. You're likely going to be spending significantly more money, not likely, you will be spending significantly more money to harvest than to treat. To treat half of the lily pads you have currently with an herbicide would cost about $8,000. I'm guessing with harvesting it's going to be a bit more than that. And after, say, 2 or 3 years of $8,000, you probably wouldn't need to treat for quite a few years. So something to consider as you tackle the overall budget. Overall problem is stretching the dollar as far as possible, because you have a lot of things to spend your money on.
Have you worked, oops, sorry. Go ahead. Have you worked in New York State with other water lily removal?
Yeah, we have. I actually born and raised in New York. I grew up outside of Syracuse, and most of my family and everyone still lives there. So I'm quite connected to New York still. Yeah, lily pads and working with the DEC in general can be challenging, but we shouldn't have a problem there. And Brendan can't speak; he's tied up on this, but he would be the most knowledgeable. I don't think he's allowed to talk on this. I don't think he has permission to, but he's the most knowledgeable on our projects and experience in New York State with the lilies. But I'm sure there's an avenue there. As long as you're using active ingredients that are approved, and the ones I'm talking about are.
So I don't have the comments of the DEC just with me right now, but my recollection is they were concerned because there was less than 20% of the area of the pond that was covered by lily pads. And they were saying that because native lily pads are a native species, they didn't want to diminish the over-diminish the quantity. I'm not saying that quite right, but you get the idea.
Correct.
And our point was that, as you can see, I don't know if you guys can see on this screen, but the lily pads are located primarily in this in the southwest corner. So they're very thick in that southwest corner, but in the rest of the pond, they're not present. So, or not as present. We have more current pictures where it shows localized sections of lilies in the major corner of the pond, but they pushed back on that. We said to them that we were not going after all of the lily pads. We were just selectively harvesting in order to, as you said, go after the carp, and also to remove some of the nutrients from the pond to hopefully go after our harmful algal bloom situation there. So that was one thing that they were concerned about, and we tried to set them straight on that. They're asking for a site visit. We've agreed to go to the site and meet with them. James, do you recall anything else that they said in their letter?
I think their last email was that they don't need to do a site visit because we provided them with drone
Great.
road footage, so
Great, that's good.
that was their last.
Okay,
They've
do you-
been working on it.
I couldn't hear if he was talking. Can I show you something here quick, or?
Of course.
talk through something?
He,
So that's kind of what the state is saying, and it's not coordinated, I think it's just, it's, the science shows you want 15 to 20%. So if we set a goal for 20% here, that's what they're saying, and then you just remove, say you have 30 acres of lilies, remove 10 acres in the most problematic spots, and then over time, in theory, like an amoeba, like the lilies will move throughout the lake, and you then hopefully, all the areas where you don't want lilies, you can have them gone, while they're then inhabiting areas where they're more tolerated or accepted. But I wouldn't get hung up on removing the physical material providing a tremendous impact to your water quality. It certainly doesn't hurt, but for the dollar spent, you would find Foslock, and I'm not saying that because I want to sell you Foslock, I'm just saying like, when dollar to dollar, you can impact your water quality better than harvesting. But just something to consider when you're dealing with the state, that you want long-term control in these areas, not just short-term. And if all they let you do is give the plants a haircut in these areas you don't want the plants, it's gonna probably be an ongoing expense forever. And I would think that at some point there'll be a desire to push for more permanent solutions, and permanent is relative, but, and then the last thing is lily pads are a unique species for you guys because they aren't going to, be consumed by carp and other fish in general, where other native plants do. And so the lily pads are a bit of a blessing for you guys from a standpoint of you can have your lily pads, they provide vegetation and coverage, but they won't take over 100% of the lake that easily. They could grow over 100% of the lake, but not very easily, where once you start improving water clarity and sunlight is getting to the bottom, other native submerged plants are gonna grow. And there's this chain of events that happens where you spend all this money and you restore the lake to a better place, and then you have all these different problems and all these different issues. And the different problem would be you're gonna have other species of vegetation taking over as much of the lake as possible. And so there's just some kind of similar to like a chess game, like there's just some moves you guys should be making from a management standpoint that allows your water quality to improve, but also your ability to manage, because I don't think you want to be spending 40 or 50 grand a year on herbicides or mechanical harvesting forever. And there's a balance to be struck there. And I guess the point I wanted to drive home is lily pads are likely a very good plant for your lake if they could just be in the right spots. They're not perfect. There's other plants that are better, but from a financial standpoint, I think lily pads are a good option for you guys when it comes to ongoing budgets. So for whatever that's worth.
Well, since we're running a little long here, we've got a couple of things that I just want to observe. First is there's been a consensus, it seems, about common carp removal. That's been of very big importance. But the troubling part of that is relative to actually getting the dollars necessary that we're going to be able to make a sustainable dent is problematic, because there's a situation where the committee that makes that recommendation or approval does not see it that way. So I think that just like we're having an education process here with folks from the community, that I think we're pretty far along in this process. You want to see a swimmable lake. People want to see results in their lifetime relative to this. So now it's like we're back to Foslock, right? We're back to having a conversation about, binding this material to the bottom, utilizing the Foslock product with the proper dosing, the proper mathematics, and, with having the proper runoff eradicated so that maybe there's a chance. So I really think that the board needs to really get into some good conversation to figure out what's the next step. Because if you can't get the money to do effective carp remediation and the lily pad process is questionable, what direction do we go to get something done in people's, lifetime, in a time frame where we're not just spinning our wheels all over the place here? It's like, it's a little troubling when you are hearing that from many different people that I would consider to be professionals, that they're saying this common theme about, getting this carp to a level where they're not stirring up all these nutrients, but yet the folks that you have to go to request the funding to do this are not in agreement with that. So I think we need some further education with this, and I think we have to take another look at, what occurred, since Foslock's popping up again. And I think we need to get another conversation going internally among this board to figure out what is the next move so that we have meaningful project going on here. We're not just going around in circles, which I kind of feel is
I just have
going
one
on?
question, and this isn't holding you to this, but you said that we would probably spend in the range of $500,000 to remove carp. We don't have an estimate for Foslock application and removal, and that's predicated upon the receipt of a permit for Foslock removal from DEC. Could you give us, not being held to anything here, but just a general idea of the cost of Foslock?
Yeah, I understand that sediment data and water quality data play a large role with inputs from outside the system, the watershed as well. But I just want to state this one thing, that most of your phosphorus issues are likely from internal loading versus external sources. And again, that's just a generalization, but phosphorus comes into lakes and it doesn't have a path to leave very well, and it just accumulates. And over the years, it builds up. Where nitrogen goes into the air, 70% of the air we're breathing is nitrogen. There's a path out of that water into the air for nitrogen. Phosphorus doesn't have that, and is a fairly safe bet to say that if you solve your phosphorus in the sediments of your lake, you solve your phosphorus issues. And it took decades or more for the phosphorus to accumulate to this rate. And it sounded like from this call, not that long ago, maybe 30 years ago or something, the lake used to be in a cleaner state. The lake just simply hit a tipping point where there's too much phosphorus. And I'm not saying inputs from upstream aren't more phosphorus rich than they used to be, but in general, I would focus on in-water stuff and collect good data before you did it. But as for a number, your in-water phosphorus is, to strip out all the phosphorus in the water today, you're talking just north of $100,000 likely. And then to deal with the sediments, and it could be less than that, because that brings your phosphorus to zero. So say $60,000 to $80,000 to address your in-water phosphorus, and then your sediment, until we see sediment data, it's hard to say and learn more about it, but I would think $300,000 overall is a great step in the right direction, and it might be more than you need. And the reason why I say that is you might be able to, in the revised budget we put together, which happy to discuss with the board and or water quality committee, probably offline or online, but the like 25 grand a year in Foslock would likely provide tremendous improvement to the lake, and doing that over the years versus spending $250,000 at once and hoping it works. And that's all comes down to part of the living with the carp. Like if you gotta live with the carp, you just strip out the phosphorus each year and just try to keep your head above water that way while carp recruitment stops from lots of bluegill swimming around. So I don't know if that's a great answer, but I would say $200,000 to $300,000 is the low end. But I would also say technologies and change is improving, and I wouldn't underestimate the power of oxygen and exploring a technology that improves oxygen in the lake breaks your phosphorus cycle. And so it sounds a little bit, let me see if I can find it here. It sounds a little bit, I guess it doesn't sound logical at first, until you understand the science of it. A low dissolved oxygen increases your phosphorus levels. And so if you can maintain high oxygen at the bottom of the lake year round, you don't even have a phosphorus issue currently on some level, and I'm generalizing there. And so I think that we just need to do a little bit more digging into options to reduce phosphorus and or improve oxygen, and starting with existing and current water quality data, and then adding to that water quality data if you need more, or if you need sediment data, like if you guys don't have an understanding of the sediments, then you're missing that piece of the puzzle. And that was, just scrolling down to the recommendations, there was a $3,400 line item in the electrofishing report to do the sediment fractioning. And that's where you grab a bunch of sediment from the lake and you figure out how much phosphorus is in that sediment, and then how much of that phosphorus could release into the water. And then once you do that fractioning, you then know what the demand is, and then you know how to mitigate it. And so hopefully that provides some context. We definitely have a willingness to further the discussion with you guys. I'm not sure the right approach for you guys based on budget and time frame, but.
Right. I appreciate that you recognize that, and I don't think this is the right time to go so heavy into it. We're in a general meeting right now. I've got a lot of permits that we need to approve. We've gone quite long. You've given us a lot of information. The public's here and they have had input. But I think we need to kind of break out into a different type of a work session outside of this general session, because this is going to go quite long. So let's figure out when we could take a look at this next. And
well, how about if you work a little bit on your increasing oxygen ideas, so that the next time we meet, we could discuss that. We could discuss the updated water quality, algae ID, and sediment fractioning data, that portion of it as well. And at least
a proposal on your FOSLOC application, which is much different than we had originally looked at. It was going to be a one-time in the spring and a follow-up in the fall. You're looking at maybe multiple years of putting it in on a lot less of an amount, which is completely different than the proposal that we had originally worked with.
And then in turn, we could look at where we stand with continuing carp removal, if that is a possibility. It's just, we're gonna come up against budgetary constraints. So when you say a number of $500,000 for carp removal, we can't do both.
Right, I get it, but listen, we're in a general
yeah.
session right now.
Yep.
These are conversations that I think are more for breakout in a different venue, quite frankly. I want to thank you, sir, for your time. We will be speaking in the future at a more appropriate venue. And then we'll obviously be communicating with the public as we move the ball forward.
Yeah, well, thank you guys as well. We appreciate it, and we look forward to talking soon.
Thank
Have
you.
a nice day.
Thank you.
You too.
Okay, and I'd like to thank the folks from the Mill Pond community here. You've been engaged for as long as I can remember, because I remember working with you back when I was a conservation board member, and I've been sitting here for 10 years, so I know you've been at it for a long time. I appreciate your passion and your dedication to try and, make the environment in our community and your communities better, and we're here engaged in it as well. As you see, it's Mother Nature has a lot of dynamics, there's a lot of education goes on here. let's figure out when we can have a conversation. We've got a lot of permits to approve here, and we'll continue this discussion. All right?
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
That being said, thank you folks for excellent discussion. We do have public portion now I want to call before we get into our permit approvals. I don't want to slight if there's anybody in Zoom that needs to address the board. You have 3 minutes, whatever the matter is, in the
No
public
hands.
portion. Okay, so that being said, let's close public portion, and let's get down to the business here. I have trustee resolution 2023-230. It's an application of Sharon and Johann Decourt, 16 East Diana Road, Hampton Bays. Vetted this work session, recommended, so.
Second.
Seconded, trustee Pell, all in favor?
Aye.
Trustee resolution 2023-231. Application 19 Shinnecock Road Enterprises LLC, 19 Shinnecock Road East Quogue, tax map 900, 384-03-51. Recommended it's approved.
Second.
Seconded, trustee Warner, all in favor?
Aye.
Trustee resolution 2023-232. Recall and amend trustees resolution 2023-216 of Thomas and Kerry Mazika, 3 Harbor Lane East Quogue, tax map 900-317-1-12, where we adopted this resolution that the Board of Trustees of the Town of Southampton authorized President to sign a permit for the reconstruction of in place approximately 251 feet of existing bulkhead, approximately 214 square feet of existing wood ramp, 138 square feet of an existing wood walkway, approximately 611 square feet of the wood deck, an increased top elevation of bulkhead, ramp, walkway, and deck by 9 inches, place 100 cubic yards of clean fill within 10-foot landward of the bulkhead as a buffer, plant with beach grass 12 inches on center.
I'll give it a
Whereas-
second.
And then that's what we had, and we hereby amend it as follows. That's what we had, and we're gonna amend it as follows.
Oh, you do two of these.
Reconstruction of in place approximately 251 linear feet, 214 square feet of existing ramp, 138 square feet of existing wood walkway, approximately 61 square feet of wood deck. Increased top of elevation bulkhead ramp walkway by 9 inches, place 100 cubic yards of sand, 10-foot landward, and plant buffer material at 3 Harbor Lane in East Quogue. Now,
I'll give you a second.
second, trustee
All right.
Warner, all in favor?
All right.
Trustee Kelly, you don't have anything at this point. Trustee Warner?
Trustee resolution 2023-233, renewal application, the first one of GP 000498, 142C Newtown LLC, 142C Newtown Road, Hampton Bays. We worked on this at work session, so I recommend its approval.
Second.
Second, trustee Pell, all in favor?
Trustee Resolution 2023-234, this is a first renewal of GP 000479, 7 Noyak Harbor Road, LLC, 7 Noyak Harbor in Noyak, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-4-1-57, body of water at Doug Lagoon off Noyak Creek. I'd like to recommend this first renewal.
Second.
Second, trustee Warner, all in favor?
Aye.
Trustee Resolution 2023-235, application of 91 Cabal Road LLC, 91 Cabal Road in Watermill, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-160-3-21.1, body of water, Mecox Bay. This is to place a bulkhead. I'd like to recommend its approval.
Second.
Second, trustee Warner, all in favor?
Trustee Resolution 2023-236, application of William and Gail Harney for 38 Tut Hill Lane, Remsenburg, New York, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-380-3-65.4, body of water, Moriches Bay. I'd move to have this approved.
Second.
Second, trustee Pell, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Trustee Resolution 2023-237, application of 24 Cedar Lane LLC, 24 Cedar Lane, Remsenburg, New York, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-375-2-3.04, body of water, Fish Creek. I'd move for this resolution to be approved.
Second.
Second, trustee Pell, all in favor?
Aye. 190, resolution authorizing installation of oyster and clam farms. After a lengthy discussion with some of the board members, there's some question about the wordage of the resolution, so I recommend that we table it until I can get everything cleared up. So I need a second on that.
Second.
Seconded, trustee Welker, all in favor?
All right,
Aye.
thank you.
Trustee Resolution 2023-226, this is to recall and amend Resolution 2023-123 for lily removal in Mill Pond with SpectraServe. I'm just going to read this, it's not long. Whereas on February 13th, 2023, by Trustee Board Resolution 23-50, Board of Trustees, in conjunction with Southampton Town Clerk and the Board of Trustees, authorized to advertise a bid for water lily removal in Mill Pond, Watermill, New York. Whereas the resolution stated the bid price was not to exceed $24,688, which is an error. The not to exceed price should be $50,000. Now therefore be it resolved that the not to exceed price of $24,688 should be changed to $50,000, and all other aspects of Resolution 2023-123 shall remain the same. I'd like to recommend this approval.
I have a question on this. If we do not receive the permit from the New York State DEC to do the water lily removal by the growing season, when it would be appropriate to cut these lilies down, what happens with that?
So before we go down that route, according to the gentleman from SpectraServe, the water temperature can be above 64 degrees, and it still can be considered peak biomass removal. So we can go into the first bit of September comfortably, and we are aggressively advocating for that permit. However, so let me.
But my question
Yes,
is,
yes.
if it's not utilized this fall during this period, and the contract has been signed, what is the length of the contract? Is it for a year? And is the money available that will be, can the money be, that's available be rolled over for 2024?
The contract goes by the calendar year, and it is written so that it's renewable up to for 4 years in the future.
Okay.
So it's a 5-year renewable annual contract.
Because I know it was a very difficult lift to get all of this
Yeah, yeah.
together, and I'm hoping that we can, if it's not utilized this growing season,
No,
hopefully
thought be
we'll
going
be
at it,
back
thought
for,
be going.
hopefully we'll be back on the board
Mark, do you want to add
next
anything
year.
to this?
I'm concerned because I don't want to go through this again and
I
again
know.
and again.
I know.
So,
No,
so,
thankfully, it was written so
Okay.
that
Yep.
it ends at the
Yep.
calendar year, but it can be extended, so we would just have to extend it. But my sincere wish is that this will be done this season.
all right, so,
In theory, it should be resolved.
yes.
Yes.
But if it isn't, so as soon as the growing season is done, we should put it on for a renewal for next year.
Okay.
All right, I'll give you a second on
Seconded,
that.
trustee Warner, all in favor?
Aye.
Trustee Resolution 2023-238, this is to authorize acceptance of funds from the New York State eminent domain account. Whereas New York State Department of Transportation acquired property in the form of a permanent easement from the trustees needed for the Southampton-Bridgehampton Storm Drain Improvement Project, and whereas pursuant to Section 304 of the Eminent Domain Procedure Law, the New York State Comptroller has deposited the sum of $41,000 in an eminent domain account. Whereas this sum represents the state's offer for its eminent domain acquisition of the property, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the freeholders and commonalty of the town of Southampton hereby accept the sum of $41,000, and be it further resolved that the Board of Trustees of the freeholders and commonalty of the town of Southampton hereby authorize the President of the Trustees to execute any and all documents necessary to accept the sum of $41,000. deposited in an eminent domain account. Do we want to expand on that a little bit?
I would
just
love to expand on that one,
just-
because the last time we got a check for some selling of some sand that we owned, the money went into the town's general fund, and we didn't see it. So being that we're actually gonna accept this money for property that we own, is it gonna go into the trustees fund, or is it gonna go into the town's fund, at which time we have to?
The other property was property that was owned by the trust as well.
That's what I'm
Same as the
asking.
product of the
So
trust.
I wanna know where are we gonna,
This is
directly
this is a permanent easement.
Right,
Yes,
but the
but
money
the
should go
money-
into
the mon-
8790
yes, the trustees account,
is where it's gotta go.
not the town's
So
general fund.
you want to amend you want to amend on the floor the resolution that also dictates that it goes to the trust account?
Okay, so I'd
Is
like
there a motion to?
Oh,
There's a
sorry.
motion.
Motion to recall an amend?
Well,
Is
we
that-
didn't
we didn't-
pass this.
We didn't pass
No.
it, so
We
it's
didn't
just.
pass it, so you
so
can
it's just
amend it on
amending
the,
it,
amend it
so-
on the floor.
I think the
Right.
check is it's checked to the trustees.
That's what I
And you-
think
and
too.
You can come and sign the documents in my office now.
I wanna make
think I
sure, because
have
the
paper.
last one was supposed to be to the trustees also.
Okay, that's
There's a
fine.
separate one for the town. The town had a taking also, but I think this is 41 grand for the trustees. I mean, you could
Because there's
but-
nothing that's but two ends.
You could
one-
adopt this now. This is just, you're gonna, because obviously you're not gonna reject $41,000.
No,
So-
but we want to make
We
sure it
could-
goes to the right account.
So
Yeah.
in the fourth paragraph where it says resolved Board of Trustees thereby accepts the sum of $1,000 to be deposited into
Trust account.
trust account.
Yep.
I'll go check the paperwork now. I mean, you could say that in the reso now, but that's
Yeah,
not
you can say that in
necessary.
the reso, it's-
I'll be right back.
It goes to the trust account.
Okay, so I'd like to adopt it as,
As amended.
as amended.
Listed as the trust
Well,
account.
Mark's checking, so do we wait for Mark?
Well, if we're saying it's going to the trust account, so
Okay, so,
that's where it's going. God bless.
so I'd like,
Thank you.
I'd like to request approval of this, please.
I'll give you a second then.
Seconded by trustee Warner, all in favor?
All right,
Aye.
Trustee Resolution 2023-239, amendments, contract and leasing. Authorized to sign the lease and extend with the Historical Society, that's for the Conscious Boat parking lot ramp. For a second on that.
Second.
I'll
Seconded
this.
trustee Parish,
So
All
it's,
in favor.
it's an extension for
It's a 10-year lease.
10 years at no cost to the trustees.
No cost. Trustee Resolution 2023.
all in favor on that?
Yes.
I thought we did this a couple years ago. but-
Well, the time flies when you're having all this fun.
It's a renewal.
I guess I've been on the board a long time.
Trustee Parish.
We didn't have a lease for a few years.
Yeah, I know.
Trustee Resolution 2023-240, purchasing trustees, authorized to purchase from Galls for trustee badges. Whereas the Board of Trustee Resolution 2023 TRUS-1 requires authorized resolution for any expenditure of $1,000, where Galls given us a quote for badges amount of $1,571.95. Whereas the fund for the badges will come from trustees, other GL SN 998790006420000. Now for there be it resolved, the trustees hereby authorize purchase of badges of amount of $1,571.95.
Second.
Seconded trustee Warner, all in favor?
No. It's a retirement badges.
So you don't want to retire?
I'm not retiring, I'm just moving on.
But you're retiring from this board,
Yes.
Yes.
I don't need
so you want to, all right.
Is that a definitely a no, or?
He's just,
No. So it's,
it's 3-1, 4-1.
yeah, I think the money can be spent other ways.
It's all right. It's 4-1.
4-1.
4-1.
4-1.
Bill,
Bill's a no.
I'm a no. We could buy clams with that money.
Can we recycle the badges?
Yes.
Don't, listen, let's just, please, let's stick to the thing here. Let's.
We hand our badges
Please,
in.
stick
And
to
the
the.
next trustee will get my badge and.
No, they're numbered, they're numbered.
They're numbered,
You
yeah.
They're numbered, no. It
All
doesn't,
right,
it doesn't
so-
work that way.
all right.
Go to your next resolution, it's trustee Pell.
I hear what you're saying, Bill,
Yeah.
but
2023-241,
Tradition.
Budget and Finance Trustee.
You're welcome, Jim.
Warrant 14 of 2023. Who recommended the review of the town comptroller, the following vendors' payment of warrant 14 be approved for the amount of $13,648.69. Fisher's Signs, $150. General Code, $28.80. Joseph, $2,490. J&G Awards, $2,140. PSEG of Long Island, $258.83. Sally Environment, $4,250. Suffolk Stern, $3,886.15, and Suffolk Environment, $75.
No, and one more. Mason.
And Mason, $369.91. Total $13,648.69.
Thank you. Thank you.
Second.
Seconded, trustee Warner, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so-
Mark, do you want to address the questions on resolution 238? That's the eminent domain and the funds.
Yes, this is I'm looking at the agreement for advance payment. It will be a check made out to the trustees of the freeholders
Okay.
in Conity right after Scott signs this. That's the agreement is made out to as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for
Thank you for
clarifying that.
Thank you.
So it's been a long meeting. We've really spent a lot of discussion here going. Sir, you have something? We missed something here?
No, I, man,
Of course, yeah.
I was curious, I'm interested in the conversation. You guys approved 142C for me.
Yes.
Great.
Can you just state your name for the
Mike
record?
Kimack. When I was in Vermont, I built several treatment lagoons. Now, they're different than treatment plants because they're basically big multi-million-dollar holes, but they're all lined. And a gallon of raw sewage comes in one end in 30 days and comes out the other end treated as secondary treatment. Then I sprayed up the hill and laid on the ground, and there's an uptake of phosphorus through the plant system before it runs down the hill. But we put in a series of bubbler systems to increase the oxygen. This may be something you may look at. I'm not quite sure what the overall expense would be, but it would be something to add oxygen to the bottom. The only thing, I think this was an excellent presentation. The only thing I would add is that you've got normally your healthy level of oxygen about 5 milligrams per liter roughly. I think cold water might be 7 because it's different between the two. It's really when the plants die that they uptake the oxygen because they need it in order to decompose at that level. So that's really where your critical level is. So I agree that, but once you use the herbicides, there will be a decrease of oxygen as those plants die in the water. So there'll be that. You may want to.
We would look very carefully at
Yeah.
anything with
And
herbicides.
This is going to be a much
This is-
bigger discussion and at a
Yeah.
more appropriate
Yeah.
time than this meeting.
There are above-ground bubblers for the top, but there's also bubblers down below where you want to get that system, and maybe something you'd want to look into.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
I can get some information
Thank
for you
you.
because I've built about 3 treatment plants up there.
Thank you.
That'd be interesting.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Always a pleasure.
Is there any more discussions that we have, or that's it? Do we need any more executive session? We do.
Just the bay height and pond height in both Mecox and Sag.
Oh, yeah, that's
Due to precipitous, that's not the best word, but amounts of rain.
Copious.
Yes, copious amounts of rain have risen significantly, and we are looking at opening, but we will wait until the end of endangered species season, which is September 1st, so we will be opening after Labor Day weekend.
All right. Thank you for that update.
Anything else that we need to address now?
No, I think we've had quite the meeting here today. And I think that we can adjourn this and go into exec session and move on today. It's been a very active day here with the Board of Trustees.
Okay.
So, that being said, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.